you have an intimate relationship, you have your physical health, you have your financial health. What is the one thing that's going to deliver the highest impact in all those areas?
Clinical psychologist,
founder of Lighthouse Arabia, Dr. Saliha Afridi.
There are times where you're absolutely driven by passion, you're driven by purpose, and there will be days where you just can't even balance that. For men, it's even more important to engage in a reflective process.
Some ex-partners, they'd always ask me like, oh, how are you feeling? And I would just hate that question. I'm like, why does it matter?
Boys, this is how they are socialized. Feelings is a whole vocabulary. It's a whole language. Mm-hmm. There's things that are going on inside of me, but I haven't learned to identify what that is.
Why do people, sometimes including myself, get themselves involved in partners or relationships when they know from the very start that this person's not going to be good for them?
See, this is a little bit of a tricky question.
Now, before we jump into today's episode, I just want to mention that this podcast is brought to you by me and everything that I have built to help you guys level up. If you want to transform your physique, build muscle, lose body fat, build strength, then you have the Thirst app. This has everything inside that you could possibly need to get yourself in shape, to hold yourself accountable as well. I also have the Digital Playbook, which is a step-by-step guide to help you guys build a following, monetize the following, and also build a strong personal brand. This is everything which I have done over the past nearly 10 years to allow myself to live a life of financial freedom and also geographical freedom. I can basically do whatever I want. Life is good. And I also have my newsletter, which has been revamped, where I'll share exclusive podcast insights, my raw thoughts on business, fitness, and much, much more. So if you're interested about any of those, check out the description. You'll find the links to all of them. Now let's get cracking with the episode. What's up, guys, and welcome back to First Things Thirst. We have a special guest today. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thanks, Mike.
I like the fact that you brought your notes, which look very thorough. Should I be worried?
No, I won't even look at them, actually. It's just to, keep me on track.
Yeah. How long have you been doing what you've been doing now?
So it will be 20 years.
20 years?
Yes. But in Dubai, 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
What have you noticed about a lot of the patients that you deal with in Dubai? It's common.
We're getting right into it.
Right, yeah.
I think we have a lot of people with meaning crises. Uh-huh. You find people even in their 20s and 30s that are having a crisis, like existential crisis of what is life about. We are quite privileged here. There's a lot of people that can afford a lot of things. They can outsource a lot of the day-to-day tasks. So it leaves them a lot of space to be worried or be anxious or be stressed. Uh-huh. And so meaning-making crises probably is one of them. And then also just we are a city of high achievers and I think a lot of stress and burnout. Yeah. And along with that comes relational issues. There comes, I think anger issues, emotional issues. Oh. So those would be probably the main things.
And you have decided to focus specifically on the high performers and high achievers.
Yes.
Why did you go down that route?
Because my work, I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and I have worked as a generalist. I've worked with all sorts of clinical issues. But as I got older, as I did more of my work, I found myself really working with executives. A lot of them happened to be men. And then we moved into the C-suite. So there were people that were functioning really well in life. So even high functioning anxiety or high functioning depression. And they needed to figure out what else was going on that was blocking them from their greatness. And that's the work that I really love doing. And I'm now going to be completing my postgraduate diploma in Jungian analysis, which is really depth work, insight-oriented work, integration work, meaning-making work. And you can do that with someone who is accomplished in many different aspects of their life, but they now need to connect with their inner world and their inner life.
Okay. So you're basically always learning. You're always achieving these new certifications.
Yeah, for me, you've never yeah, I think the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know enough and you don't know. And so I'm super curious. I'm finishing I will be getting my licensure this summer for psychedelic assisted therapy. I will be finishing my postgraduate diploma for Jungian analysis, which has been really like a 5-6 year journey. And I'm not sure what's next, but yeah, those are the two things I've been working on.
Psychedelic assisted therapy. Is that going to be allowed here?
It's not allowed here, although esketamine is available in some clinics, which is the nasal form of ketamine. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it will be approved in certain countries and we will be able to have approvals here. But what I'm seeing, Mike, is that there's a lot of people that are flying to different parts of the world
to get treatment.
Well, to think that they're going to fix themselves with, ayahuasca or, one dose of psilocybin.
I know a few people like that. Yeah.
And they've gone and they've really become undone. And it hasn't been quite healing. And they've been quite hopeless or they've become re-traumatized by that experience. So it's not happening here, but people are flying out for a weekend retreat and flying back in. And we see the aftermath of that mess.
I hear a lot of people who have done that or thinking about doing that. Even I've thought about doing it just because I've spoken to so many people who've done it before. But I'm very apprehensive because there could be the upsides of this potential experience that you have, but then nobody really prepares you for the potential downsides.
Yes.
And that's the thing that's off-putting.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to go and do something like that and then come back a version of myself that I'm not happy with.
And we could have a whole hour conversation just about psychedelic work and how do you use it and how do you use that right. And I feel a lot of my work now will be just educating people on the upside, which I don't think I need to because everyone is only talking about the upside, but no one is talking about the harm that can happen. No one is talking about the preparedness that needs to be before you go into such an experience. What do you need to do after such an experience to actually get the benefit of that medicine, right? And so that work is not happening. And you could be fundamentally different as a result of this experience. And are you okay with that? And your relationships, and it impacts every aspect of your life. So we need to go in there ready with a mindset that it could be transformative, but that doesn't come without chaos.
I've seen a couple of public figures who, one of them, for example, was a fitness guy, and he had a big YouTube following, and he went and did ayahuasca numerous times, and he completely rewired his brain. So he looks like he's completely lost the plot, and he's publicly showing this downfall or train wreck that he's going through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like my fear. It's like a worst case scenario. I would definitely not want that.
One thing I would say in a short sentence is that don't go there unless you have a good relationship with your inner life. So do a year of therapy, insight-oriented therapy, get to know yourself, get to know your pain, get to know your past, get to know your tendencies, and then go in. So you have a ground that you're standing on. When you go into this expansive state, you have something to come back to. When you don't have that inner ground, and thanks to social media, not many people do these days, when you don't have that inner solid ground, it's very easy to lose the plot.
For someone like you who will be potentially talking about it, treating patients, is it something that you would have to experience yourself in order to have a better understanding of it?
Yes, for
sure. So you have to do it?
Yes.
Have you done it? We can't talk about that.
I believe in the power of the medicine. Okay. So
that's good to know, because if I'm ever talking about something or giving advice, I feel like I have to have experienced it. For example,
I will say that too.
Yeah.
I would never do this work if I didn't believe in this work. And the only way I believe in something is if I experienced it myself. So I will answer it vaguely like that.
moving swiftly on.
Yeah. Exactly.
You mentioned before anybody thinks about doing that, they should at least spend a year or so trying therapy.
Yes.
Like normal therapy.
Yes.
That's interesting because I feel like there's so many therapists out there, yet choosing the right therapist is problematic, at least especially in my experience. Like, I have considered doing it. I have done it a little bit, but my biggest thing is finding someone who I can fully trust and someone who knows, who's got the experience. So for anybody who is thinking about it, what advice would you give to them? Where should they start?
I would say make some space for you not. It's like dating, to put it simply, or finding the right personal trainer. Like, just because you go and you meet with one, it doesn't mean the exercise doesn't work. It's just that you didn't find the right fit. You didn't find someone who understood you, who wanted to know you, developed a very personalized program for you. They were operating from what they operated from, not something that you needed. It goes like that for anything in life. When you are about to journey with someone, and really, to me, therapy is a journey into your inner world. You want to do that with someone you trust, someone you believe in, someone who you feel understood, someone you feel you have a connection with, you have a chemistry with. And that might mean that you have to interview a few people before you say, I want to do this with you. And you will feel that. How do you know? Well, you'll know. Just like you know when you meet someone and you click, you'll know. And even within that, there will be times where you feel misunderstood by your therapist. There will be times where you'll feel misjudged by your therapist. And that's a conversation you need to have. But the click and the chemistry and the trust has to be there.
And then it should be, once you do find the right one, it should be more of a longer journey as opposed to a short-term one.
Yeah. I mean, there is very short-term work. And if you are clinically symptomatic, for example, you have depressive symptoms or you have anxious symptoms, you are struggling with addictions, these are treatments. But the work that I'm talking about is insight-oriented work. And that's a journey. You're not going to know yourself in 6 hours. There's not much to know then if you think you can do that in a few months. It's an ongoing journey. And like I said, I've been in this work. I've been doing this work really, really with a deep commitment for the last decade, and even before that, but on and off. And there's still more to uncover. There's still more to know. There's still more to process. And not necessarily about my past, but about integration. There may be things that happen in our conversation today, and I might take that to my therapist, who I will be meeting at 7 p.m. tonight online. And I would say, actually, he asked me this, and it made me feel a bit insecure. I wonder what that's about. And then we process that, and we bring forth my insecurity, or it made me feel really excited when he said that. I wonder what that's about. And then it makes me lean into what more I could enjoy. So it's really a meeting with yourself that you commit to every week.
So even the therapist has a therapist?
Of course.
Is that a normal thing?
And if your therapist never had a therapist, I would not go to that therapist.
Okay, so that's the first question I would ask potential therapists. Like,
have you done therapy? A lot of programs actually insist, but then the more newer ones are not insisting that you do therapy. It was not part of my clinical program for my doctoral that you needed to do therapy. But for this Jungian analyst program, I have to have 300 hours of analysis before I can start to see clients.
Why were you so interested in getting into this field of study from a younger age?
I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
I wasn't. I actually, the first class that I ever took in my undergrad, like Psychology 101, I hated it. I was like, what is this boring stuff? It was abnormal psychology. It was very clinical. It was all the fathers of, and I was just bored. And so I didn't do my undergrad in psychology. I did it in anthropology. And I just gravitated towards, I think, sociology, anthropology. Tell me stories. Tell me about people. That's what I was interested in. And so I did my undergrad in cultural anthropology. And then I ended up doing my master's and my doctorate in psychology because I really, and after my graduation, I actually entered marketing, the field of marketing, and I just found that to be quite soulless. And like I'm using what I know about people to sell something to them. Like,
to manipulate.
Yeah, I don't like this. This cannot be my life. I remember it was like a lightning bolt moment for me. I'm sitting in my office. I was performing really well at work. And I said, this cannot be the rest of my life. That I sell things to people that they don't need based off of something that I know about them. Like, no. And so then I went and had a conversation with my sister, and she said, what do you like? And I said, I like caring for people. I like listening to people. I like stories. I always have. I've always been an avid reader, whether it was fairy tales or biographies. And so she said, well, why don't you do psychology? And it's good that I have a very short memory for bad experiences. And I said, oh, actually, that's a good idea. And that's when I went on that track to do psychology. And the day I get tired of this is the day I will stop this too. So I've shifted directions many times, but this feels right for me.
Yeah. And you launched Lighthouse Arabia. When was that?
2011.
And
15 years ago.
The goal of that is to just try and treat as many people as possible.
It's to bring mental health awareness to the UAE, to the region. It was to make people aware that they have something called mental health, because when I got here, that conversation was not happening. And I wanted to talk about that stuff. We didn't have social media, or if they did, I didn't know about it. This was 2006. And so I wanted to have that conversation. And so I wanted to create something where we could talk about mental health. We could talk about life issues and destigmatize getting support.
Yeah.
And I don't like to use the word help necessarily, because it's not about help. It's about getting support. That I'm doing okay, but it would be great if I had some support during this time. So it became a mission for me to destigmatize getting mental health treatment and getting mental health support and having that conversation.
Do you find that men usually tend to be less open to getting help?
Not just I find, but the research finds that men are 3 times less likely to get support.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. And I would say in this region, 5 times probably. It's just machismo. It's how they define masculinity, how they define independence, how they define resilience. All of these definitions don't include getting support.
Yeah.
And that's just not normal.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've been brought up that way to just get on with it. Maybe because that's what my dad did. So I just watched what he did.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is what I'll do as well.
Yeah.
So anytime there has been like hardship or loss, grief, struggles, I bottle it up and I'm like, deal with it in my own way and then just carry on. Not the best though, is it?
What do you think?
Probably no. Definitely. I think I definitely could have had some help when I was younger as a teenager. And then it's just a matter of, okay, because of those things that I went through and I didn't deal with it, those things have stuck with me and almost created this personality which I have today, which I have to like undo certain things. And I think for sure, one thing I always struggle with is trying to express and put into words my feelings, which is what I've had a few times with some ex-partners. They'd always ask me like, oh, how are you feeling? And I would just hate that question. I'm like, why does it matter? Why do you need to know how I feel? And even when I was feeling something, I couldn't
articulate.
Yeah, I couldn't articulate it. I was better off I'd have to write it down to express myself.
Yeah.
And I still to this day find it quite difficult.
Yes.
I get like weirded out if you ask me how I'm feeling. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And that's a socialization issue, right? And men, boys, no matter where you are in the world, this is how they are socialized. Feelings is a whole vocabulary. It's a whole language.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not taught this language. So it's like you're speaking Korean and I don't speak Korean. And so you're wanting to speak to me in Korean. I don't speak it.
Mm.
And there's things that are going on inside of me, but I haven't learned to identify what that is. I don't know what that pain in my stomach means, or I haven't linked that to, ooh, that means nervousness or anxiety, or it's my intuition. We don't know. And so it's a whole relationship to this inner messaging system, which is our feelings and our intuition, which they have not been taught. And then they grow up and then they get into a relationship. And then they're asked, well, how are you feeling? Because women are socialized. And we socialize each other. We talk. We are, tending and befriending. Men are fighting and flighting. This is the socialization of men versus women. And so it's literally like speaking two different languages. And men have to learn this language, but women have to make it safe for them. Because the second a man expresses, well, I'm not feeling well, or I'm not feeling good right now, and I'm grieving. Women freak out and, no. I need you to be good because when you're good, I'm good,
Yeah.
So they don't create that safety either.
There's nothing worse than fully opening up
Yeah.
and then just getting thrown back at you.
Yeah.
That's happened before, and that's made me not want to do it again.
Ever again.
Yeah.
And that's really painful when you are vulnerable and that is not met with compassion. It is not met with love. It is not met with understanding, but it is met with judgment and ostracization of just this thing that you are. Like, I don't want it. It's so painful. And this is why I think for men, it's even more important to engage in a reflective process. And I'm going to avoid using the word therapy, even though it has such a beautiful meaning. Therapy means to tend to with care and devotion. It also means treatment, but it has been medicalized. And so I don't want to use the word therapy, but I would say engage in a reflective process. Connect with yourself. Learn about your feelings. Tend to yourself. Show up for yourself. Do it for yourself. Don't do it for someone else. But that will translate over into every aspect of your life. And it's so beautiful to witness. And I feel so honored to be able to do this work that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a difference, for example, if a man or a boy is brought up, for example, with 2 or 3 sisters versus a boy who is brought up with another 3 brothers? Will they have a different ability to process emotions? Does that not really matter?
We think that, well, no, I think culture has a lot to do with it. The internalizing of the messaging that boys get is not just from the mother or father. It's from school systems. It's from media. It's from everything that we hear about what it means to be a man. So the girls will have their own little, conversation while the boy doesn't have permission to have those feelings. Well, when a little boy falls, come on, you're fine. When a girl falls, oh, honey, are you okay? It's even how we, in the most nuanced ways, through the movies they watch, through the cartoons they watch, they're getting this message that it is not okay for you to have feelings. And so I'm sure they have some idea of how to relate to the other sex, but really having a deep understanding, I don't think it's a guarantee.
Okay.
My brother grew up with 3 sisters and I'm like, he's great. But I wouldn't say he's fully articulate in being able to express himself because he grew up in a Pakistani household with a Pathan father. And this is a very macho culture that I come from. And so he's internalized what that means. And I'm sure it defined him.
Do you try to get him to open up more? And he's just like, no, I'm okay.
I, I can read him quite well, and so we relate quite well. But the thing is that men don't tend to offer their feelings. Women actually serve that function in the relationship. So I think if you know that about your dynamic, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need my husband to come and offer his feelings to me, and I will never ask him, how do you feel? Because that's just going to flood his system. Like, what do you mean? Like, how do I feel? Like, it will just be like, okay, what's going on with you? What are some of your stressors? Oh, it sounds like you're feeling like this. So I might be reflecting some of that back. And he would be like, no, I'm not disappointed. I'm angry. Like, he might be able to, if once I label something, he might be able to. So I think if women do have that ability, they might serve that function. They're called like relational monitors or emotional monitors in a relationship. It's okay.
So don't ask, how are you feeling? Rephrase it.
I think so. I think it's a very, for men, it's a flooding question. Like, oh my God, like now I have to go into the database of like the thousands of feelings that could exist, and I don't know how I'm feeling and which part of the feeling. Like, it's a very confusing thing. Even for people that are quite skilled, like if you ask me how I'm feeling, like,
it's such a broad question.
It's like, how am I feeling about what?
Yeah.
Like, how am I feeling about this podcast? I'm super excited. How am I feeling about the day? I feel a bit, apprehensive about the, So be a little bit more specific with that question.
I got asked that the other day. I was at the pool. And
oh gosh.
yeah, it was just, we're like just chilling, but having a nice time. And then they asked me like, Mike, how are you feeling? And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, like, how are you actually feeling like right now? And I was just baffled. I didn't know how to answer it.
Yeah. So note to everyone who's listening, do not ask Mike how he's feeling.
Don't ask me how I'm feeling. I'm usually feeling okay. But there's a million things going on.
But what if you're not feeling okay? Would you know?
I would, yeah. But usually...
How would you know?
Because I would be a little bit down.
In your...
My mood.
What does that look like?
It doesn't look... It's a thing with me, which is... I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like I have good control over my emotions. So I feel them. I try to understand them, but I don't let it control me or affect my behavior. So a lot of the times, like I could be, for example, if I was on a date or the early stages of a relationship before a girl knows me, she would always be like, I can never read you. I can never understand if you're happy or if you're sad. So I'm at the point now where I could be really happy, but it's like a kind of suppressed happiness, but I'm happy. And then if I'm sad, I'm feeling sad, but I'm not like there crying or in a mood. So it's like quite regulated. I don't know if that works to my advantage because then it gets them thinking like, what is he? Does he like me? Does he not like me?
Well, 2 comments on that. When you said happy, you pointed to your head, which is super interesting because that's not where happiness is. It's here. So it's interesting that you kind of pointed to your mind and not your heart, where joy and happiness usually lay. And second thing is that when someone gives you a blank kind of neutral state, which is what you're saying, I'm more neutral. I'm not having these highs and lows.
Yeah.
I'm more neutral. I'm in this kind of regulated zone.
Yeah.
What that does to the person on the opposite is makes them project all their anxieties onto you. Does he not like me? What's he thinking? He doesn't want this. He's not happy. That's because that's my own stuff. Whereas if you were like that with me, I'd be like, oh, he's chill. Like, because I don't have those anxieties inside of me. So even in therapy, the Freudian model would say present a blank slate because then the client projects all of their stuff onto you.
Yeah.
And so it's a signal to you that this person is quite anxious when they are reading you and they're trying to read you, but they can't read you, but they're projecting like, are you not happy right now? Do you not like me? Why don't, if they're doing a little bit of that, it's probably that they have a little bit more anxiety about relationships than a person who's just like, oh, he's chill, I'm chill, let's hang out. They would want a little bit more certainty from you. So you would need to kind of assure those kinds of people a bit more.
I feel like I tend to be more compatible with those who do also they have more regulated emotions. They have that emotional maturity. So I've had my experiences with the absolute opposite, and I found that very draining.
It's very exhausting.
Like, it's a roller coaster of emotions, which I can't understand why the ups, the highs are so high, the lows are so low. And if that's how they're feeling and they're my partner, then I get affected by how they feel.
Yeah.
Like, if they're happy, I'm super happy. If they're sad or upset or angry,
it's
like,
quite
I'm
infectious.
Feel, yeah.
It is a very infectious, there's a contagion with emotions. So if I'm angry, it's going to reverberate through this environment and through you. It does matter. But I would say that emotional maturity is not this kind of... Emotional regulation is different from muted. So I don't know what it is that's keeping you in the zone. Is it that you're regulated? Is it that you're too compartmentalized? Is it that you're too cerebral? Is it that you're being stoic? Is it that you're actually experiencing your emotion to the full aliveness that you are? Or is it that you are not allowing yourself to fully experience something and then be able to manage and regulate? Like, I would want to get on, I would want to understand that a bit
go
more.
Deep.
Yeah.
I think I don't suppress, I experience. And then I try to understand why. Like, why do I feel like that? So I feel like I'm very self-reflective and self-aware.
Great. Yeah.
So usually if I'm feeling happy, I'm like, okay, why do I feel happy? And I understand now there's certain things which I do which make me happy. So doing something I didn't want to do because it was difficult, and doing it and accomplishing it, whatever it might have been, I feel good after doing it. So doing hard things.
Yeah.
When you do hard things, the thought of doing it beforehand sucks because you're like, oh my God, I want to do this hard thing.
Yeah.
But afterwards, you feel great. You get a sense of accomplishment. Also, solving problems. Like, there's a problem and you're like, I want to solve this problem. It's annoying me. And then you use your brain, your intelligence to solve this problem. Once you solve it, you feel good. Any kind of goal or objective. So you set goals for yourself, or you have these milestones. There's the journey of getting there. It's not easy. You got to put the work in. But then once you achieve it, you feel great. Like, I've noticed now, those things make me happy. A lot of the career-based things make me happy if I achieve them. What makes me sad or upset tends to be signals to me where I feel as though something needs to change. Like, this, what I'm doing now, or what has just happened, I didn't like that. I didn't like the way it went. So I need to change something moving forward. Usually it tends to be having maybe too high expectations of something. So now if I go somewhere or I meet someone, whatever it might be, I try not to have the expectations too high, because if the expectations are too high and it isn't met, then it can be a bit disappointing. So I usually tend to have lower expectations. So when I feel them, I don't just sit there and be sad. I sit there and experience it and try and understand why I feel that way. And then I try to change or do something a little bit different.
Yeah. Well, that sums up what a reflective practice is really taking your emotions as signals from your deep psyche, guiding you about your path. And the more nuanced you get, the more you will read, this is right, this is wrong. And you can get so nuanced, where you literally are being guided moment by moment throughout your day, because you have such a sensitive read of your emotions and your senses. This is what it means. That is the end goal, because then I can truly live a life that is mine, because I'm being guided by this inner intelligence, which sends up emotions for you to say, oh, what was that? Oh, what was that? Oh, I got a vibe, or I got a good feeling, or I didn't feel so good. What was that? That deconstructing is the journey. And so you're already doing that. It's interesting that when you first said that when I feel sad is when my expectations are too high. But then you said that's when I experience disappointment. But those are two very different feelings.
Sad and disappointment.
And disappointed. Now, you could say, well, they kind of feel the same, but no. Disappointment, when I say you're disappointed, something feels a bit heavy, like something feels like it dropped inside of you. But when I feel sad, you kind of feel a little bit of a pressure in your chest, maybe. When I say betrayed, feels like a stab. When I feel anxious, it feels very noisy, so you start to get a very nuanced read of your body in those emotional states, and then they guide you to make the best decisions for your life.
This episode is brought to you by Whoop. The all-new Whoop is here, the only wearable that turns your health and fitness data into personalized guidance. Now, 7% smaller with 14 days of battery life. I've been wearing Whoop since 2021, and I've been wearing it every single day. It's a device which I have used to improve my training, improve my sleep, and stay away from the things which are definitely not good for me. It has been a game changer. Now, Whoop includes a heart screener with on-demand ECG readings, so you can check in on your heart anytime and share results with your healthcare provider. It also includes a health span, a new feature that demystifies the aging process and shows how your daily habits impact your pace of aging, as well as hormonal insights for personalized guidance throughout your cycle or pregnancy. It's the only wearable that gives you a truly comprehensive view of your body, designed to help you improve your performance, longevity, and overall health. So you can join now at joinwhoop.com/first things first to get your first month for free. Let's get back to the episode. I think with this process, it's definitely helped me to improve my life and maybe rethink the things that I desire or the things that I should do. But I still far from mastered it. And I still do things that I know I shouldn't do. So why do we do that? Why do we do the things we know we shouldn't do?
Because it's serving some function for you.
Okay.
So if you give me an example, I would tell you that, there's a Harvard researcher who talks about immunity to change. We have an immunity to change because, one, we want something, but we want something else too. So there's a competing commitment inside. I'm lonely. I really want to go out and make friends, but I really kind of want to chill and relax and be lazy too.
Yeah.
Like there's a competing commitment. I'm committed to both. Then you have to lean into the uncomfortable one, which is going to say, okay, come on, get up, go out. And usually people don't want to do the thing that is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They just want to do the thing that feels good. We are programmed, designed as human beings to avoid discomfort and to seek pleasure.
Yeah.
This is like our hardwire. This is not something you can avoid. So doing the hard thing, doing the uncomfortable thing, feels almost like anti-instinct. My instinct is to be lazy. My instinct is to lounge around. It requires discipline and practice to keep leaning into discomfort.
Yeah.
Because that's where the growth is.
Okay, I'll give you two examples. So one, which is very sort of prominent to me in the field that I'm in or have been in, is to do with physique and looking a certain way. Like most people know what they need to do in order to look a certain way. Go to the gym, work out, move your body, and eat the right things. Usually people go through phases where they're motivated to do this. They will be disciplined, but it doesn't last very long for whatever reason. And then they fall back to their bad habits of not paying attention to what they eat, maybe having too many desserts, maybe skipping the gym. And then after a certain point in time, they get so fed up and they're like, oh no, I can't do this anymore. The motivation will come back. They need to sort their physique out, whatever it might be. So they go through these cycles of on and off. And by doing that, they never really achieve that physique or look the way they want to look because they're so inconsistent with the efforts that they put in. So what's going on there in the mind? Because I teach as much as possible. I show people how it's done. I open the door. It's like, do this in the gym. Do this outside of the gym. But the psychology and the mental discipline that is required to achieve a great physique is difficult. So what's going on there?
Well, I think you use the word discipline.
Mm.
I think that is what is needed for long-term gains and sustainable gains. One thing that I can get in people's way is that they don't have a good self-awareness. They don't understand that when they're stressed, they reach for the sugar and then they go off the track. So we need to understand that when we are stressed, we will resort to the easiest, fastest, quickest way to make ourselves feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people are living a very high stress life. And so you will resort to your default. You will resort to what is the quickest way for you to feel better when you are stressed. So all of a sudden, I'm a disciplined person and I have a crisis in my life. I am almost guaranteed to fall off that track unless I'm aware that this is when you fall off the track, unless you have almost like a troubleshooting sheet that you go to when in time of crisis, throw out all the sugar from the house, call the trainer because you won't have the internal discipline. So have someone that's going to meet you there. So have like a plan, which doesn't make you weak. It just makes you prepared.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't. I can do it all on my own. This kind of rugged individualism. You can't do it all on your own. You need systems in place and you need people that are going to support you in times where discipline and willpower will not show up for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I tend to do is I'm pretty motivated to train and work out because I love it. But there are times where maybe if I'm underslept, I'm like, realistically, going to gym and lifting heavy weights is not going to be very sensible. So instead of doing nothing, it's like, okay, but I can walk still. So let me just go walk for an hour. So that's like the alternative.
Yes.
With the food side of things, well, if you were to have a look at my fridge and my cupboards, it's extremely depressing. There's no food there because I know what I'm like. Like there are moments of weakness that I experience where I will go and grab something if it's there. So I make it hard for myself.
What are those moments of weakness? If you start tracking them, you will find that it's either maybe 11 a.m. or 4 p.m.
It's the evening,
like,
after 8 p.m.
After 8 p.m., you've had a long day. You just need a nightcap of a burger. I don't know. Like there are going to be times where you are going to have those moments. That's when you almost have a plan in place that this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So self-awareness, again, I keep coming back to self-awareness. It is the key because people are solving top down rather than bottom up. First, understand what are your weaknesses. When are your weaknesses? When do you fall off track? How often what has happened? But most people are like, no, I will just power through with sheer will.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work.
It's as well, I know lack of sleep leads to poor decisions. Always.
Lack of sleep gives you almost 60% less access to your frontal lobe, which is the seat of all of your good decisions. It's your executive functioning. So when you don't have access to that frontal lobe, you can have all the information and all the programs and all the apps. You're not going to do it because that connection in your brain that uses the higher power, higher order thinking is just not there.
Yeah. I have another example, probably more interesting. Why do people, sometimes including myself, get themselves involved in partners or relationships when they know from the very start that this person's not going to be good for them? They see all the red flags and they're like, okay.
Come, let's do this. Yeah. Well, we would describe that as a reenactment from childhood wounds. So unhealed, unexamined, unprocessed wounds. We are gravitating towards reenacting that with another person. So if I felt abandoned, as in my early caregiver relationships or early childhood, I will find a person who's like an avoidant attachment. And then I will replay that out as an unhealed wound inside of me. So that could be like, and they might be playing out something too. So both are playing out something. But if you know that you are drawn to people that are just not good for you, go do your work.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't have to be this way. Relationships should be exciting, but they should not be dramatic and, volatile and, mind-wrecking. Like, it shouldn't be that way. There should be some stability and excitement and spontaneity and curiosity and wonderment. But this idea that it has to be thrilling can sometimes be quite...
There'd be some people who probably never had a normal relationship, so that's all they're accustomed to.
But that's all they will do, yeah.
Probably because that's what their parents experienced. So they just think, this is normal.
And oftentimes people with personality traits or personality disorders, whether it's borderline, narcissistic, you're very drawn to that person. Their charisma, their intensity, you're drawn to that because you're just like, it's like a defibrillator and you feel alive. But then when they pull you under, that also is like, it throws you down and slams you down. It's very, very difficult to be in that kind of volatility.
What would you say to this statement? This is what Saliha Khan says. Do you know her, Saliha Khan?
I don't know her personally.
Okay. So she says, if you want to judge I'm not quoting her, this is just a general thing she said. She says, if you are looking to get into a relationship with someone, this is usually a woman, look at the relationship that her parents have. That is usually a good indicator as to whether or not it's going to be a successful relationship. So if she had, or she has parents that are in a good, stable, happy relationship, the likelihood of you having a good, stable, happy relationship is going to be higher versus if that person has either lost a parent or didn't have a father figure for much of their childhood life, or the father regularly and visibly cheated on the mother in front of them.
I think it's, you could say, yeah, sure. But what if that person has been in a therapeutic process? What if they've done their own work? What if they've learned from past relationships? I think it's this kind of polarized binary way of thinking. It just, you didn't have a dad, I don't want to be in a relationship. It's like if you take things too literally, everything is wrong and nothing is right.
You don't really give them a chance either.
Yeah, it's not, you cannot take what you hear or what you see in one research paper or what you see on one Instagram tile to be the ultimate truth. Of course there is truth in that, but I can give you 1,001 people that I personally know and I have worked with that I know are in absolutely beautiful relationships, or people that have had really, mom and dad, it looks like everything was fine, but they actually wasn't any emotional intimacy. So what is a definition of a good marriage or a good relationship? I don't know. These things are not very helpful for me. I think they make people very literal. They make people lose the nuance of what is needed. So they want to come up with an algorithm and a checklist of people they will date. Doesn't work like this. Oh, father, good. Mother, good. Relationship, yes. Never been, okay. Who are you going to find with all of these criteria?
Yeah.
It's not right, and it's not human, and it's not relational. It's transactional, and it actually lends itself to like this consumeristic culture that we have about relationship, where you have to be just right for me. I'm not a sofa or a television. I'm a human being and I'm complex and I have many, many layers and dimensions. And I am who I am today, but I wasn't what I was 15 years ago when I got married or, so I will evolve. Will you be with me then? And so all these statements that I hear online, yeah, okay. And I'm not, I find them reductionistic. I find them, simplistic.
Yeah.
It's never that simple.
Yeah. How can you tell if somebody has done the work or is willing to do the work?
If they can own their mistake, if they can own, if someone says, how are you feeling? And you can say, you know what? I'm actually not sure right now. If they're not sure, if they have some doubt, if they're too certain, that's also Like if they're overconfident, that also for me sends a signal that, is there any room for you to grow? Is there any room for you to take some influence from me, for you to learn from me, for me to learn from you? Like, how are we going to do this together? It's a relationship, two people relating together rather than two people like transacting something. Like it's not, I have a whole lot to
If
say
you
about
dealt
that.
with people like that who are just so, I guess they've come to see you, so that's a good indication that they're willing to change. But are they usually so stubborn and confident that they just are reluctant to take in what advice you have to give to them?
Well, if they're in front of me, they're ready to do the work.
Okay.
Typically, I don't see people that were like forced by their wives or their partners. They really want to be there, and they really see that something's not working, that my life is great, I'm successful, I have money, I can afford whatever, I have 3 children, I have a partner, I have a house. Something, I can feel that there is something that's not, I'm not fulfilling my potential, I'm not fully who I am. That's when we begin our work. And I'm really like, that's the midlife work. That's my,
What,
my
midlife crisis? Or
you could call it a crisis.
okay.
But the work you have to do beyond 35.
Okay. Well, I'll soon be there.
Yeah. Some people begin at 33. I've seen it. I've seen it 32, 33. It's becoming earlier and earlier. So early 30s even, where you have to, because success was achieved earlier and people are getting the checklist done earlier.
I think purpose is massive because I see a lot of people who they've made a lot of money and they have everything they could possibly want, but maybe the thing that they are doing, which is making them money, isn't really providing them with that purpose. It's not the most rewarding. I feel like with what I do, by just trying to help people online with the podcast, with my YouTube channel, getting people in shape, it feels good because I have people who come up to me and they just say like, you literally changed my life, or you're the reason why I'm here, or you're the reason why I lost 10 kilos. Like that's good.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel I should carry on doing this. And when you build an audience, it's almost like you have a duty to be a good role model and spread good information and be of value.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel good doing what I'm doing.
I think that's a really important part of happiness that people don't focus on very much and we don't talk about very much, which is your duty in life is to figure out what your gift is and then bring that gift into the world to make the world better. Most people are, let me just figure out what my gift is and let me just be very happy. And let me just have all the things and do all the things. But that's not going to give you happiness. Happiness cannot come without you doing whatever it is that you're doing in service of someone else. It cannot come. I have seen it now for 20 years. You will get to a point in your life where you will say, well, what's the point of all of this? I now have everything. What's the meaning of my life? And life has no meaning. You have to make the meaning. You have to be in service of something other than you, bigger than you. Whether it's your community, whether it's your family, whether it's nature, find something that you serve. And it cannot just be you and your like little bubble. Yeah.
And I think if you are struggling to find that, then have a family, have some kids. At least then you'll think, okay, now my purpose is to raise the best kids that I can possibly raise.
That is a really good purpose.
Yeah.
But don't have kids for that reason only.
Okay.
That reason cannot be, because then they become a project. And that can be very difficult for the kids. That's a lot of pressure to put on kids that I have to raise. You have to fulfill my purpose. No. You find your own purpose. Like your kids, they come through you, but they don't belong to you and they cannot be your project, and they have their own lives and they have their own spirit, and we must honor that too. And so if you make them your purpose, what happens when they leave? Or what happens when they do exactly the opposite of what you wanted them to do?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel so good. So have your own. Serve the community. Volunteer. do some good in the world. You know, go be part of some organization that builds homes or cleans up garbage, or you're serving something other than you. And the research is conclusive that when you volunteer, you feel better.
Yeah.
And when you give to people, you feel better in a sustainable way. Not I buy something and I feel good for like the next hour. But when I do something for someone or I buy something for someone else, I feel good for 10 days after. Because I just feel good because I did something for someone else.
I noticed that a lot of the younger generation, particularly the guys who are in their late teens, early 20s, they feel very lost and helpless because, you know, maybe they hear things like this, but they're so young, they don't know, like, well, what is my purpose? I don't even know myself. I hardly know anything about life at this point. They'll just not know what their purpose is until maybe later on.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to them?
Follow the breadcrumbs. You won't find it sitting here looking on ChatGPT. You will not find your purpose in a room. You will find it following the breadcrumbs of what excites you. What are you interested in? I have a 19-year-old. She went to college and she's like, I have no idea what I'm going to major in. Follow the breadcrumbs. Take as many classes as you can in the most random subjects and just see what you're interested in. And then within one semester, she's now finding herself gravitating towards classics, anthropology, literature, mythology. Okay, follow the breadcrumbs. Now the breadcrumbs are taking her out of California into the UK. So where she wants to study at St. James and do classics, go there. Maybe 1 year later, you decide, actually, no, that's not what I want. Now go somewhere else. Like follow the impulse. Don't be impulsive, which is different. But there's a sense you get of what makes you come alive. Follow that, and you will find your purpose. And you won't even find it. You will live into it. It's almost as if it will show up on that path because you have followed what makes you come alive. Rather than being on a screen and rather than, you know, projecting a persona, don't focus so much on your brand and your image right now. Figure out who you are and what makes you come alive.
Yeah. So go do things.
Do things.
Do things and travel.
Do things. Do really, really odd things and do various things. And don't say, oh, I don't like this. Try at least 3 times before you're like, not for me. But you expose yourself to different experiences, which is just not happening. People are so anxious these days that they commit too quickly to I don't like math, I don't like reading, I don't like working with tech, I don't like it. How do you even know that? You literally just did that for like 4 hours. You can't make a decision based off of like a month of exposure to something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say to those kids.
You mentioned ChatGPT, and I was saying earlier that I did use it to kind of prepare for this podcast. I asked it, what are the leading mental health conditions in 2025? And it came out with 5. So one of them is anxiety disorders. The other was depression. One was youth mental health. 4th was substance use disorders. And the 5th was post-traumatic stress disorder. Would you say that's roughly roundabout right?
Yeah, I would say clinical disorders. I would say that's about right. I also think, although it's not necessarily listed as a clinical disorder, it's a different kind of coding. Relationship issues would be, but obviously relationship issues feed into all of that.
Yeah.
So it's not listed as a clinical disorder because it's not a clinical issue, but these issues feed into each other. And I would say, if I were to say what shows up in the room, that would be really big.
Under anxiety, it was saying some factors including financial stress, political uncertainty, and the pervasive influence of social media.
Yeah.
So that sounds about right.
Yeah. Eco-anxiety, climate change.
Climate change came up a lot,
Yeah.
which I'm surprised about because I don't wake up and think, oh my God, the earth is getting warmer.
Yeah.
But is that like
It's
people
a
are actually
real
scared
thing.
about that?
They're scared that the world will come to an end. We will run out of water. We will overheat. It's a real thing. And we are, absolutely abusing the earth.
Yeah, but like, I don't
And so
feel...
when it retaliates, it is not going to look good for us.
But in our lifetime, though.
I don't know.
I mean, I understand them a little bit because sometimes I'll watch these documentaries on space and the universe, and they go deep into just how vast the universe is and how tiny and arguably insignificant we are.
Yes.
And you're just like, when you really think about it, it starts to freak you out a little bit. But I can handle that. But I can imagine how some people, if they read too much into that, it will mess with their head a little bit.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a really good ability to compartmentalize. I think it's a skill that everyone should learn. Sometimes it gets a bad rap, but the ability to compartmentalize is a really important skill. To say, okay, this is not in my control. Mm-hmm. I'm going to recycle. I'm going to turn off the lights when I'm not in the room. I'm going to make sure that I do things in a sustainable way. Okay, I will do what I can, but then it's not in my control. Mm-hmm. Right? I will support businesses that are eco-friendly. I will support businesses that consider the planet. This is the power we have, but everything else is out of our hands. And we have to compartmentalize that.
How would you define depression? Like, what's the difference between being depressed and just being sad or unhappy?
That's such a great question, because people use that term quite colloquially. It's a clinical word, but it also is an expressive word that I'm going through a depression, like meaning a lower mood. But depression is a clinical term. It has a set of criteria that you must meet in order to meet that diagnosis. And we look at intensity, frequency, duration. So how long have you been feeling sad? Are you socially isolating? Are you not able to think, concentrate, pay attention? Is your motivation low? Is your mood low? Are you crying excessively or angry excessively, agitated excessively? And there's probably some, or having suicidal ideation, feeling hopelessness. Yes. How long? You must experience that for at least 2 weeks, most of the day, every day. So duration, 2 weeks, intensity, most of the day, every day, for at least 2 weeks before we can say, yes, this is a clinical depressive episode. But a lot of times people are just going through a bad period.
Yeah, they say, oh, I'm depressed.
And sometimes people are going through grief, like they have a breakup in a relationship and they're grieving. And I don't want to pathologize grieving, but it can look very much like depression. But if you're not functioning, and I should probably say that it really significantly impacts your social, occupational, academic functioning. So I could be really heartbroken, but I'm still able to show up here and do what I need to do. So it's not meeting that clinical criteria, but it would be something that I would say just go get support, because what most people do, and it's crazy for me to still think that in 2025, people wait 6 to 10 years before addressing some of their issues. Like when they've identified that I have these cyclical issues of depressive episodes where I'm out for 3-4 weeks at a time. I have to call out sick. I can't show up for work. I can't keep a job. It takes them, before they address it, it takes them 6 to 10 years if they even address it. Because some men won't even do that. And some people won't. Women won't either. But like I said, men are 3 times less likely. So that would be the difference between sadness. Sadness is a normal human emotion. If you are not feeling it, then probably you're not living life to its fullest. Depression is a clinical diagnosis.
Which can be cured, or can it not be cured? It can be treated.
It can be treated.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have had a depressive episode, then you have a tendency for that. So it's almost like a switch has gone on in your brain, and you are at a higher risk for having another depressive episode. So you're really going to have to build
You have to
coping
understand
skills
yourself.
and understand yourself and understand what your triggers are. But a lot of times depression...
Well, when some people say they're depressed, and then I would get them to describe their life and what they're doing, I'd be like,
Yeah.
well, that's not very surprising.
Yeah.
Like, change your life, get out there, go do something.
Yeah.
Don't stay. Usually they just stay at home, and probably a not very nice home, isolate themselves, not do anything they enjoy, and live somewhere miserable. Like, you're not really helping yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do whatever it is that you can to, and there's ways to treat it. It's cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, but then there's behavioral therapy for depression.
Mm-hmm.
If someone comes, you might actually say, I am prescribing you volunteering, or I'm prescribing you exercise every day. You have to walk outside in the sun every single day. Like, you might actually treat it in multiple different ways where you are working on the cognitive behavioral, cognitive stuff, maybe past wounds, childhood wounds, any of that stuff. And then you're also doing some behavioral changes alongside of that.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about the stress that a lot of high performers will no doubt experience, and probably a lot of the clients that you have and the audience which I have, because I think a lot of people listening, they're wanting to perform at their best. They're constantly wanting to do more, make more money, just take on more responsibility. Obviously, that will build up mentally. Have you found any systems that worked in order to perform at your best and still work a lot, but also find that balance where you're not overdoing it and, just running yourself into the ground?
See, this is a little bit of a tricky question to answer, because there will be some times, I think it was Steve Jobs who said, in order to make a dent in the universe, you've got to give it everything you've got, right? There have been times I don't remember if I slept that day. Like, there are times where you're absolutely driven by passion, and you're driven by mission, and you're driven by purpose. And there will be days where you just can't even balance that. But okay, have a day there and day here, but not this idea of you're going to live your life like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think seeing your life as a wheel, and in that wheelhouse, you have relationships, you have an intimate relationship, you have your physical health, you have your financial health, you have your personal development, you have your purpose, mission. Like, you see the whole wheel. You can't be tending to one side for too long. You have to do what is needed in all dimensions. And you'll have to think of the thing that has the highest impact.
Mm-hmm.
And can't remember the author, but in the book, The One Thing really speaks to this, which is that what is the one thing that's going to deliver the highest impact in all those areas when you are really giving your work everything you've got, but you still have a partner and you still have children and you still have your physical health. What is that one thing going to be? So that one thing for me is like, okay, well, physical health cannot be compromised, because that's the thing that's going to carry over everything. So you have to sleep, you have to eat right, and you have to move, like, period. That's a non-negotiable. So don't even have a conversation about that. But what's the one thing that's going to be the highest impact when it comes to kids? Okay, well, eating dinner together. The research is also quite supportive of this, that when you sit together and you eat, you sit and you talk, you put your phone away, that's going to be high impact where you connect. But of course, the other, 20 hours, you might actually be working and hustling, but where can you give time? And I'm not saying you should live like that, but if you are in one of those periods where the project is about to launch or you're about to deliver something, then you want to make sure that you are tending to all those aspects of you by doing the highest impact. So, for example, you might decide to meet with all of your friends and have just a gathering in your home where you put your cell phones away and you just hang out. It's 3 hours. It might be something, you might even just do that once in a month, but you've really maximized that connection and been together. But if there's a phone in the way and you're connecting, okay, that's not going to work. So think about the ways you can tend to these different parts of your life and it will never be balanced. It's never going to be this 50-50. It's sometimes going to be that your personal life is taking 70%. Your kid gets sick, or your marriage needs work, or something happens, and now it's tilting, where you are now giving 70% of your energy to this personal dimension and 30%. So what's the one thing you're going to do at work that's going to make sure that you don't drop that ball? So thinking about the one thing in all areas of your life is very helpful. And then knowing that it's a balancing act, not a balanced life. Always, every week negotiating, every week shifting those. It's literally like juggling balls. And it's not this kind of weighing scale of 50-50. I've never experienced that. I have 4 kids. I have a business. I am studying. I'm traveling into different continents of, the world. I'm married. I have my parents that live with me within our household. Like, there's a lot that I have to tend. There's a lot I have to tend to. But there's a way to do it where you're saying, I'm going to show up for this part of my life because it's important. And I don't want to just sit and work because it just gives me so much joy. Because then when I'm done with that, there'll be no one here.
How did you manage that with 4 kids and trying to obviously progress with your work as well?
Yeah.
Because
I'm like high octane. I have a lot of energy. There were periods where, like I said, I've burnt out twice and like diagnosable burnout. Not like this, I had a bad week, I need rest for a weekend. Like proper 6-week recovery period where there was just literally no adrenaline left because I was just running on adrenaline and no sleep and no, I just was really obsessed. I learned. If you told me not to do it, I wouldn't listen. So I know. So those high performers, like, I'm not going to tell you not to do that. I'm just going to tell you find the one thing and just keep it somewhat.
Even your therapist didn't stand a chance, eh?
No, they didn't. They didn't. If you told me to slow down, I would be like, I can't. That's like telling like a wild stallion to just stop running. It's like, how? I have all this energy in me. And it must be. I must express this. I must live this. But then through age and experience and wisdom, you see, okay, this is what I need in order for sustainable gains and not just this kind of burst of energy that comes out and then crashes. Yeah,
what I've noticed with my life so far is obviously you have those pillars and it is really just this art of trying to juggle them all and feed them as much as you can. It is never going to be perfectly equal. If you're starting a business or you're really trying to focus on your career, then the career pillar becomes the priority. And because that is so high, it means you need to sacrifice those other pillars. So maybe the amount of time or attention that goes to relationships, that goes down. The family, that might go down. Seeing your friends, that might also go down. I've noticed myself when, there's a period in my life where I had to do like quite a serious transition with my career and almost I felt like I was taking a step backwards. So I had to kind of rebuild. And I was so focused on the career side of things. Obviously, the health and fitness, that can never be compromised. So they were the 2 priorities. But I noticed, like, even though for the first time I was making decent money and I was like, I thought it was supposed to make me happy, I realized, I don't have any friends. I've just moved to London and I haven't made an effort to make any friends. So my social life is taking a hit. I was in a relationship, but it was a long distance relationship. So there was very intense periods of, okay, the relationship pillar is high, but then when they were gone for a couple of weeks, that just disappeared. And then obviously that made me feel a certain way. So I've realized now if I am experiencing, whether it be unhappiness or feeling like something is missing, usually I just think, okay, well, which one do I need to give some attention to? Maybe, I haven't hung out with my friends for a week. Let me go see my friends. And then I go spend, a couple of hours with my friends. And after that, I'm like, that was really good. Like, in a way, I sometimes treat that as my therapy session. But I'm quite lucky because I'm surrounded by these friends who are, they're pretty old, not old, but they're mature enough to give me good advice. They're smart. They're doing well. Some of them are doing better than me. So, we can all talk and discuss. And share our
You
problems.
guys have a council.
Yeah.
And you share each other's pain, but you also lift each other.
Yeah.
It's so important to have that tribe. But it's also, as you said, that life is a great teacher. You didn't know that, and then you learned that. And that's what reflection does. Most people will keep repeating the same thing again and again and again and again, and wondering why life still feels like this.
Yeah.
So this idea that you say, okay, I realize that when I'm not with my friends, or I don't tend to that part of my life, that something is lacking. So now I'm going to make that a routine. I'm going to schedule it in with like a Sharpie on my schedule that every 2 weeks I have to be with my friends. So this is where you start to time box and you try to prioritize what is important. And then you build around that. Ask me what I'm doing on, June 7th, and I will tell you precisely what I'm doing. Because my day, I really schedule it because I want to tend to every part of my life. My exercise is scheduled in, my sleep is scheduled in, my rest is scheduled in, my time with my friends is scheduled in. My time with my kids is scheduled in. And when I was doing these two programs, one is in Zurich and one is in Berkeley, California. Now, I have to fly out once a month to California. Like, I had to sit with my kids and say, listen, guys, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do this unless I have your consent, I have your permission, I have your support. And what does that mean for you? That means I'm not going to be here a week. That means you're going to have to watch out for yourself during that week. You're going to look after yourself in that week. Of course, my husband is there and my parents are there, but like, I'm not going to be there. And
How long are you gone for?
I usually go 1 week at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been doing that for the last year. But having knowing that it's going to require sacrifice from them is also important, because then we're doing this thing together and they're investing in my development and they feel like they have a say in that. So actually going to your people in your life and saying, I need this from you. Will you give this to me? Will you sacrifice your good, your benefit for me? I think that's also a healthy way, and doing that for them as well.
Yeah. Have you got any advice for people about having a happy and healthy relationship? Probably got a lot of advice, I would imagine.
That's a really, the one thing that I will say is that before the digital age, there was consumerism. And consumerism was already redefining how we engage with relationships. We saw it as a transaction. We saw it as a value that you must bring to me. How we deal with commodities, right? How we deal with objects like a TV. Like, if it makes me feel good, if I like it, I keep it. If I don't, I return it or I get rid of it. And that kind of has seeped into the way we relate to people in our life. If you make me feel good, then you're here. If you don't make me feel good, you're out. And relationships never work like that. The best of relationships will have pain, they will have sadness, they will have disappointment, they will have betrayal, sometimes small betrayals, sometimes very big betrayals. And that doesn't mean that it's the end of a relationship. It just means that you both have committed to being on a journey where you both will support each other, you will grow each other, you will commit to each other, you will go through the thick and thin together. What does that mean? That means that I will mess up, surely, and I will disappoint you, surely. Will you still be with me? And I would say, yes, if you can own that, I'm with you. And if you can do something with that to grow yourself, I'm with you. Now, if you keep doing that again and again and again, okay, maybe not. But is there space for sacrifice? Is there space for forgiveness? Is there space for compromise? We don't talk about these things. This kind of binary, literal objectification, commodification of relationships is not right. It's never like that. It's far more complex because we are far more complex. And who you marry today will not be who is in that relationship with you 5 years, but 2 years, 10 years from now, because you will be different, I hope. When people say you've changed, yeah, I hope I'm not the same person that I was, a year ago even. I hope I keep changing. But can we commit to walking this path together? That is important. And I just don't think that that's happening right now.
Yeah, well, especially with social media, I feel like people are so replaceable. There's so many options.
Yeah.
And if there is an argument or, somebody messed up, they're
Swap.
like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
And even I'm
Delete.
guilty of that sometimes.
Block.
If somebody's going to give me some headache, I'm
Mhm.
like, don't need that.
Yeah.
I'll go find someone else. So I'm a part of the problem.
Yeah, we would probably just want to think about why you do that, or what are you afraid of? I mean,
That'll be that's a whole new conversation.
right?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening inside of you? What are you afraid of? What are you worried about? And what is your selection criteria? Like, who are you choosing to be in these maybe you are being drawn to people that are giving you this kind of high intensity excitement, but they're not necessarily going to be a good partner for you.
Well, I think now, and from the experience I've had, I know the difference between, okay, you can have fun, but leave it at that, versus, okay, this is actual like wifey material. So I do know now there's a difference, and it's quite easy for me to see from the behavior, what it is that they do, how they behave on social media, many different things. But I am interested to know how I will evolve as a person, because I feel like now I'm 34. I feel like I have a lot of life figured out. Certainly a lot of things I don't have figured out. I wonder if I will look back, imagine me being my 70-year-old self. What would he think of the 34-year-old self right now?
How foolish you was.
Yeah. Or would he be like, do you know what? You did what you should have done at that point in time.
I can say to you, I am far older than you are. And I can say when I look back at 34, oh gosh, like that was a very long time ago. And of course I did. One thing I can say always, I did the best I could. And I feel really proud of that. I did the best I could. I did it with all my heart. I'd made lots of crazy decisions, lots of bad decisions, lots of wrong turns, right turns, but I did them with all of my heart. All of me showed up for all of it. And so I feel proud of that. Now, when I think back to what she knew and what I know, that's like a whole different person, 15 years, that's a long time.
What crazy decisions did you make?
Oh, I cannot go on record. I cannot go on record with that. Yeah, lots of stuff.
What do you think your 70-year-old self would say to you if they were sitting in front of you, but you didn't know it was you, if they were disguised?
Yeah.
But it was your 70-year-old self. What do you think they would say to you right now?
Like, what advice would I give?
Yeah.
I've never listened to advice, so they probably would know not to give me advice. Whenever someone asks me, what would you say to your younger self, or what would you say to your future self, I wouldn't say anything. Like, I know I'm showing up the best way I can. I feel really proud of that. What I would say is just keep doing what you're doing and say yes to all of it. Yes to the mess. Yes to the pain. Yes to the disappointment. Yes to the paradox. Yes to the sadness. Yes to the grief. Yes to the love. Yes to the joy. Just keep saying yes.
Yeah, I often reflect on maybe relationships didn't work out, and maybe there was a lot of feelings and emotions that were involved that I had for this person. You could call it love. I don't know if it's love. But when you're experiencing the sadness of a heartbreak, of course I feel it and I embrace the sadness, but I'm thankful for the fact that I got to experience that in the first place.
Yeah. So
like that feeling of being in love is pretty rare.
It is. It's so rare. And there you show this beautiful paradox of grief and gratitude. You are holding both, and you're feeling both at the same time. You don't have to choose one over the other.
Yeah.
The true sign of emotional maturity and wisdom is, can you live the paradox that is life? Can you live with doubt along with faith? Can you be full of fear and still act? Because that's courage. It's not fearlessness. Can you be with people and not completely, consume them? Or can you be relation? So all of this is holding paradox. Can you be grateful and still be grieving? This is the paradox of life. Most people cannot hold paradox, and the social media world does not support paradoxical thinking or nuance. It is moving us into binary thinking. It's moving us into polarized thinking. It's moving us into literal thinking. And that's cancel culture. And it's really, really quite toxic for relationships.
So your advice would be to spend less time on social media, or just try to control the information that you are taking in? Like, don't follow trash.
Well, be very conscious of who you follow, because truly they influence your thinking, even in the most nuanced way, subtle ways. They will be influencing you. One, I wouldn't say spend less time. I would say spend more time doing something else, right? It's not about what you do. It's what about you doing outside of what social media is. Are you spending time with a reflective practice, a discipline? Like you go to the gym, you should have someone that you see. That's like me saying, oh, I'm the greatest player. I don't need a coach because I have the skill. The greatest players on earth have a coach because they can see what you cannot see. And they have an understanding of something that you cannot, because they might be able to hold the whole board, or they have a skill that they might be able to bring to you. So the best players have coaches. So do you have a practice outside of social media that really strengthens your self-understanding? Because if you do not have that, we are moving towards a generation of borderline personality traits and narcissistic traits. We have fragile sense of self. We have this grandeur and self-aggrandization. It's image, and it's devaluing or idealizing and devaluing. These are characteristic traits of personality disorders. And I'm not saying you have a personality disorder, but surely I am seeing these traits in people right now. Cancel culture is one of those. If I say something wrong, or someone didn't like something I said, and they just unfollow me, but what about all the things that I said that were right?
I recently posted something a few weeks ago and I lost 2,000 followers.
Yeah. But this is cancel culture. And that tells me that you cannot hold a human being in their totality, that I will be flawed. I never said I was perfect. What made you think that way? And just because you disagree with me, you unfollow me. How will you be in a relationship? How can you be in relationship if you disagree with me and you say delete or unfollow or whatever happens? It's not normal. We are headed towards a generation of personality disorder traits. I'm seeing this in the adolescents. I'm seeing this in young people who really, and I'm seeing this, and when I say young people, like anybody under 40, where they don't have a good, stable sense of self because they have spent their whole life projecting an image, not show thyself, not know thyself. And really, if you spend that time outside of social media, really understanding who you are, really, and then when 2,000 people unfollow you, it doesn't derail you. Some people, it really puts them under. It really, really affects their self-esteem. It's their self-worth. There have been suicides that have happened. Like, this really can be very painful because that sense of rejection is not easy.
I just see it as, oh, well, I just got rid of some people who I probably didn't want following me in the first place.
But it's still
some extremely sensitive people, which probably at some point I will offend later down the line. So it doesn't, but I'm at that age where I feel as though I don't let it get to me.
And you also have a followership enough.
Yeah.
Now imagine if you only have 5,000 people following you.
I feel as though particularly the younger generation, I don't know how they would deal with that. Like, I'm quite happy I was brought up in a time where that didn't exist. Throughout my teenage years, the worst we had was MSN Messenger.
Yeah.
And then I think Facebook came around in my early 20s, and then Instagram, and then the chaos started.
Yeah.
Well, how are you trying to ensure that your children don't get sucked into that crazy world?
Well, they don't have social media until they're 18. And
do they complain about that?
No. They don't, thank God, because I've done a very thorough job of teaching them. Why is it that I don't want them to be on there? They all had a therapist on and off that they've worked with, coach, I would say, in a reflective practice. For me, that was a very important thing, that I want you to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to spend time learning about your inner world. The way you go to school for your outer world, you go to this person for your inner world. And so framing it that way, where they worked with someone, building an emotional vocabulary, having a way to express in relationship, these were things that were important to me. I still have one of my kids who's not as expressive, which is okay. But yeah.
A boy.
Yes. Yes. But no, he's great. But no, they never complained about it.
So they don't feel like they're missing out.
Of course, they might feel that they're missing out, but you're missing out when you're not drinking either.
That's true.
Right? People think, well, why do I have to wait till 21 to drink? Well, you're missing out.
So what happens when they're 18 then?
Well,
they're allowed?
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. Any of them 18 yet?
19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they doing okay?
Yeah.
That's good.
She is. I sometimes wish she would kind of, be a bit more messy and make a few more mistakes. As long as you're learning from that, it never is a mistake. It's an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And wisdom comes from that. So you don't get wisdom sitting in your room doing all the right things. You've got to go out and do things that kind of rock your world a little bit, and they shake you up and they test you and they challenge you. And it might be a mistake. And then you realize, oof, that did not feel right. That was wrong for my compass. These things are part of life.
Yeah.
So I give them full permission to make all sorts of mistakes. I surely have, and I'm better for it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you. I appreciate your time today. If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
The best channel would be probably my Instagram account.
Yeah.
At this time, yeah.
And if they are considering therapy, where should they go? Lighthouse Arabia.
I can vouch for all of them, the therapists
good,
that
apparently.
are there. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.